Hey guys, it's Kaz and today I am here with my April wrap up. So April was a really good month for me in terms of reading. I ended up reading 10 books, 4 of which were graphic novels. One of them isn't really a graphic novel. It's kind of, I'm not sure how to explain it actually. I'll show you when I get to it. But I've actually been managing to keep up with and in fact ahead of my uni readings in the month of April, which is fantastic because the previous months I was behind. But moving on, I will show you the books that I read during the month. The first book that I read was The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, one of the books for my Gothic literature course. So The Turn of the Screw is about a woman who gets a job as a governess with this particular family that has a son and a daughter, and when she gets there she starts noticing some really weird things happening and the children seem to be aware of it, but they're not worried for some strange reason. And that's all I'm really gonna say about this book, but this was an interesting one. Upon finishing it at first, I gave it about a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I didn't really enjoy the book. The writing style was interesting. The story itself was kind of confusing. It just ended super abruptly. Super abruptly. But I ended up doing a presentation on this book, so I read some essays and kind of had a look at some different thoughts and interpretations of the book. I ended up appreciating it a little bit more, so I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. It's not a huge jump up because I still didn't love the writing and wasn't an extremely high enjoyment factor, but I do really appreciate how this book was crafted and how it is so ambiguous, and you can really interpret this book in very different ways. I don't want to spoil anything, but if you guys are really interested in my thoughts about this, let me know down below and I could possibly do a review discussion type thing on this book. It's a very interesting one. It's an interesting one. The next book that I read was The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, one of these Sherlock Holmes books. This particular mystery surrounds Sir Charles Baskerville, who was found dead, and there is this local legend about this hound and all the people are really superstitious, but Watson goes off to Dartmoor to investigate it. It was really interesting seeing so much from Watson because Sherlock Holmes isn't really present in a good majority of this book, and it is mainly kind of Watson's own investigations and things like that, which was quite interesting. So yeah, really enjoyed it. I'm really happy I read it. Next we have The Monk by Matthew Lewis. Finally finished this one. It took me about a 1.5 months to read this one. Super slow going. Unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy this. I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars. I think it was a kind of mix of things, like the writing. I would often find myself skimming over sections because I was just getting really bored. There was also this one section kind of towards the beginning of the book where we're taken out of the story and we kind of look at a history, and that went for like 100 pages. It was so long. It was interesting, but it took me away from the story of the monk. I felt kind of detached from that point onwards. There's a lot of really disgusting things that happen in this book and things that are just awful. Shame I didn't like it. A lot of you guys seem to really enjoy this book, and I don't know, I think it just wasn't quite for me. The next 3 books I read pretty much back to back, and that is the first 3 volumes of Death Note, the Black Edition. And now because each of these books are a bind up of 2 volumes, I pretty much read volumes 1 to 6. If you guys aren't aware, this is a manga series about a Death Note. If you write someone's name in the Death Note, they die. This series is a lot darker than I expected it to be. It's quite twisted, and the mentality of some of these characters, it's just so fascinating getting into these people's heads. Now that I think about it, it kind of reminds me of like Sherlock Holmes, the ability that some of these characters have at deducing things out of seemingly nothing. The way that the story is told and things are presented, the characters are 1 or 2 steps ahead of a lot of the other characters, but also the reader. So like we're presented with this information and they've already thought everything through and come up with a solution. It's just so awesome. I love it so much. So of these first ones, I gave the first volume 4 stars, the second 4.5, and the third one 5 stars. I didn't bother rating like volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, 4, 5, 6 individually. I just kind of went with the Black Edition volumes. Then the Dewey's 24-hour readathon happened and I managed to read a fair bit during those 24 hours. First of all, I finished reading Dracula by Bram Stoker. I had picked it up prior to the readathon actually starting, and this one I gave about 3 stars. I did enjoy it more than I did the first time round, especially since the first time that I read it back in high school, I didn't actually finish it. So from this edition, this here is actually the story. And so this middle part was probably the bit that I enjoyed the most. The beginning and the end dragged a little bit, I found, or at least were a little more slow going. The middle section did kind of pick up and was fast paced, and I was hoping that it would stay like that until the end, but it does kind of slow down as things kind of lead to the climax and then the actual resolution of the story. Things just happen super abruptly. It was just kind of bizarre having things drag out for like 50 pages and then the actual climax happened in half a page. The contrast of pacing it like that was kind of weird for me, and I didn't really like that, but I really liked how the book was set out with all the letters and the journal entries and things like that. And I think the characters I liked the most were Mina and Van Helsing. I also started and finished A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab during the readathon. This was the March-April read-along pick for the little book club, and I ended up really enjoying this one. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I loved the world building, the setting. The whole world is just so rich and I could really visualize it. It was just so brilliantly depicted in this book, and we have some really interesting characters as well. I love the whole idea about the magic and the Antari. Just the jumping between different worlds was super awesome, and it has me very excited to continue on in A Gathering of Shadows. Oh my goodness, the cover for that is awesome, so cool. But I did host a live show discussion for this book. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll leave a link to it down below. The beginning is spoiler free, and then after the first like 10 or so minutes we do go into spoilery discussions, so whether you have or haven't read it, you can at least watch the start. And during the readathon I also started Death Note Volume 4. I ended up finishing this one a little bit after the readathon, and this one I also gave 5 out of 5 stars. So good. These books are so good. I think Volume 4 so far is my absolute favorite. Like, they're just getting better and better. And the last book that I finished during the month of April was The Age of Earthquakes, A Guide to the Extreme Present. And this was a book that was sent to me by Penguin Australia unsolicited. This is the very interesting one. The way that this book is presented, it's like a mix of images and use of typography to kind of illustrate how technology has advanced and how it's affecting the world both negatively and positively. Just like with all of these advancements, the other changes in the world as well. As you can see, I've got quite a few post-it notes in here, some really interesting or funny pages that really stood out to me. Like this one in particular that just like I'm pretty sure most of us can relate to. Have you ever bragged that you're going on holiday and won't be checking your emails only to crumble within 2 days? Of course you have. This was a rhetorical question. Or on the internet, until proven otherwise, always assume the person on the other end is a 40-year-old ponytail guy wearing a diaper. Things like this, commenting just about technology, the world, the internet, and things like that. So I found this one really interesting, and obviously because of the way that this is set out, it was really fast to read, and I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was really clever and it really made me think. So I'm probably going to be doing a review going a little more in depth on this one at some point, so if you're interested in that, let me know. So those are the books that I finished during the month of April, but I did start or continue a couple of other books that I just want to quickly mention. I was of course continuing to listen to the audiobook of The Power of One by Bryce Courtney, and by the end of the month I was almost finished. I was nearing the end. I also picked up Volume 5 of Death Note, and at this point, I'm halfway through it, and this one is a little slower in pace. It's taken me a little longer to read this one. I'm able to read these books in a few hours if I just sit out and flat out read, because they're graphic novels. I'm able to kind of whiz through them. But this one, I don't know, I'm just not able to really sit down and just concentrate on the book. I get really distracted easily while reading this one. I'm still really enjoying this story, and things are getting pretty intense as well, but I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. I can kind of guess what it is, but I don't want to spoil anything, so. And I also picked up Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier, one of the other books that I'm studying in my Gothic literature course. So that is all that I have in terms of books for this wrap-up video, but I do have a couple of other things that I want to quickly mention. I actually didn't end up doing any reviews this month, but I should hopefully be able to remedy that soon. And this month I actually put up more than one video on my vlog channel. Of course, there is the Document Your Life video, which I'm doing every month, but I also put up a moving out vlog. It's pretty much documenting my first experience of moving out of home for the very first time and moving into this brand new place. I'm living in a shared house with my boyfriend and 5 other wonderful friends, so I decided to film the moving out, moving in process, if you will. I think that's about it for this video, so thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts on any of the books that I mentioned today, and I guess I will see you very soon with my May TBR video. So until then, bye!